What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Manage My Mom podcast. I'm your girl, Auntie Marie, and I'm here with another dope momager to share some great advice with you. Today, we're speaking with Miss April Davis. April is the mom and momager of 16-year-old entrepreneur, chess champion, community service champion, and genius, Miles Davis. Hi, April.
Hello.
How
Thanks for
are you
having me.
today?
I'm good. The weather is beautiful. I feel like it's been the nicest day today than all summer. So,
So, the first thing I want to talk to you about is, do you consider yourself a momager?
okay, so I'm different. I feel like the term is very new.
Mhm.
And so if someone would have ever asked me without mentioning the word, I wouldn't have described myself as that.
Makes
And
sense.
so I just feel it's almost like kidpreneur, right? That's kind of a
Right.
new term. And so, had I not ever heard it being used, I would never put it together that way. So, I guess, virtue of definition of the word, I guess I would be a mom manager.
Well, I definitely perceive you as a momager because I know that there's no way in the world that these kids can get as far as they are getting without some support, whether it's a mom or an actual manager, a team of some sort. So sometimes us moms, we fall into this role as their business manager as well, and then we just good at it.
Yes, I agree.
Well, before we really jump into all about Miles and the Be Empowered brand and all of the amazing things he's doing, one thing I've always wanted to ask you is, where did you get his name? Because he has such a famous name. Whenever I'm like Miles Davis, I'm like, wait, is that his name? Wait, that is his name.
Well, I get no credit for that. My husband, his dad named him. Yeah, I was, you know how we do. It was over. I was exhausted, and he told me the name, and I went with it. But I do remember when he said it. I don't know if my face expression might have shown him something that slight maybe I don't know, I look confused. I was simply just tired. And he said, Miles Davis, like, you know Miles Davis, right? I was like, yeah, I know Miles Davis. But the way he said it was like, do you get it? And I was like,
Right.
yeah, okay, that's it. Yeah. So yeah,
I
my
love
husband, his
it.
dad named him that
Does he get that often? Does Miles get that
all
often?
the time. Very
Yeah.
seldom do I don't know if I've ever recalled someone saying his name or hearing it and that kind of putting the attention on Miles Davis, a famous trumpet player. Da, 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 da. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. It's so cool. So I love it. So I wanted to ask you that for sure. So one thing about Miles, Miles is the 16-year-old CEO of Be Empowered brand. It's a streetwear brand here in DC, and it's getting so far. I mean, I've seen Red Grant wearing the hoodies, Joe Claire wearing the hoodies. I've seen him all over DC in the community doing what he does. So tell us a little bit about the company and your relationship with the company.
So this might be a little exclusive for you.
Hey.
I've never shared. Miles has never shared. So first of all, be empowered. Miles came up with the name. He came up with the slogan. He came up with the logo, the website. That was all him, 100%. Um, During the discussion of him starting a business, he actually had several ideas that had nothing to do with clothing.
Mm.
Clothing was the farthest thing from his mind, actually. Um, and he came, I really want to call it like a week from launching a completely different brand. Meaning that he had the name, the logo, he had everything that he even prepared product for this particular brand business that he was going to launch. And a week shy from that date that he was going to launch it, he pivoted and
Mm.
decided he was going to do clothing. Actually, when I was a young adult, I sold clothing. I had a clothing
Oh.
brand. I sold women, men, and kids. Well, I didn't do a lot of kids, but I did do some kids. And so that was something that I did when I was in my like early 20s. I sold everything at some point in life. And so the brand itself, All Miles, the idea regarding clothing, we all were discussing it. And I think the light went off for him when he realized that he didn't know anyone, personally or nationally, that had a children's clothing brand only owned by a child. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when the light bulb went off for Miles. Is that okay? That's a niche. Well, okay, yeah, you got your children's place and you got your things like that, but the children's brand business, he doesn't know of any that's owned by a child. And so, because essentially it started with only children clothing, it wasn't adults. And that's just something he just decided to expand later on.
So what was I just have to ask, what was the brand before it was closed?
I've gotten in trouble several times by him by disclosing those ideas because he's still, they still may come into fruition.
Okay, okay, what
I'll
was
be
it,
at that. I'll be
please?
telling him, oh, he was going to do this. He's like, Mom, stop telling people because I still might want to do it. So I'm sorry. I
Okay,
have to
we'll
plead
wait
the
and
fifth.
see. Oh yes. Whenever people say plead the fifth, the first thing I think about is Dave Chappelle, like fifth. So okay, okay,
Yeah.
we'll respect boss man's mind here. Okay, so I was watching your interview with I think Addison Seymour, and you were saying that he started at 10 and he's like, no, I started at 12. But so tell us about that. How did it all get started? Was he 10 or was he 12?
So this is before any communication in the family at all was had between him and us about entrepreneurship. It honestly wasn't even a thought, just to be quite frank.
Mm-hmm.
But I was homeschooling him. And doing this homeschool collective, we were attached to Sankofa, which we met up every Friday, once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Tamika Young, National Association of Kidpreneurs, she was offering a course there called The Hustle. And so I saw about how you get your syllabus of what's different things that are offered. And I was like, entrepreneur? I was like, I told myself, I was like, it's an entrepreneur class for kids. Like we actually, our minds were blown because we weren't fully aware that was actually a real thing. To be honest, of
Mm-hmm.
course you've heard of a kid doing this or that, but it was almost like a kid did it and they were just having fun, not from an actual business perspective. And so he was 10 years old when he started that class, The Hustle, at Sankofa when I was homeschooling him.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And so I have so many questions now after you just said that because the first one that came to mind was you saying that you homeschooled him. So what made you homeschool him? Did you homeschool him like since kindergarten all the way through, or was it COVID that
No,
played a
so I
part?
only really no, it was prior to COVID. So my husband had been introducing the idea of homeschooling since he was a toddler.
Oh,
I was a working mother at the time, and so my rebuttal will always be, okay, so I'm going to quit my job and homeschool him. And then the conversation would kind of like dwindle away and then resurface another 2 months later.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been mentioned. I mean, I really want to feel like, I don't know, between 3 and 5, my husband would just keep bringing it up. It's like, I think you need to homeschool. I think you need to homeschool. But we never really had a full discussion until maybe 9 years old. I
Mhm.
think we began to really have a full discussion about it, and I actually had to put my mind around it. And we actually had to say, okay, don't work this and that, putting those real details together because it all sounds good, but that means life changes for everyone. And so, in spite of it being a conversation early on, we didn't really fully discuss it until around 8 or 9, which we discussed. He was actually attending so he has been to public school prior, just
Mhm.
to answer that question. But at the time of our discussion, he was attending Ujima Shule, which is one of the oldest African independent schools in the country, which is located in
Wow.
Washington, D.C. on Q Street in the Shaw area. And he was actually attending that school, which was very unorthodox. They had to wear African attire. They had to have African names. We had to wear African attire. We
I
weren't
did not
allowed to
know
wear
about that
makeup. We
school.
had to have African names. And so it was
What?
an absolute amazing experience there. And so he did a few years there. And I think I personally began to take it more serious when these constant ideas of promoting him was coming about. It was the idea, we're going to skip him. We're going to skip him. Let's promote him. Let's promote him. And, in the beginning, you all excited, like, yay, my kid's going to be good. But then after a while, I was like, it's like, we don't know. We want him kind of 9 years old with, 15-year-olds. Like, we think about the social aspect and the chemistry. And it's just like, I don't think the idea is just keep elevating them, right? It's like, let's increase the curriculum. But even though it was an independent school, they still had their own curriculum as well. And the school was absolutely amazing. I take nothing from it. But that is when I begin to get a little more serious. Say, okay, because with homeschooling, you can essentially create your own curricula for them. And if you want them to take higher classes, you have that ability as long as they're able to keep up to do it. And so once I started really looking into it, because all I really knew is what society tells you. You're in the basement, there's a chalkboard, they have no social outlet, you're all by yourself. And so when I only had that understanding, but once I dived into it, I'm like, oh no, there's collectives everywhere. Like this is a whole thing. Like there's a lot of moms homeschooling where I live. And so once I did my research and realized, okay, this might be a really good thing. And then that following year, I decided to do it. And so essentially, it wasn't really okay. Do it 2 years, 3 years. It was just let's do it. And if we take this all the way through to 12th grade, we do. If not, we'll figure it out. So yeah, so that's kind of how that all came about.
Is he still homeschooled or is he back
No,
into?
so we did eventually put him into high school.
Okay.
Part of the decision making with that is he always wanted to get into engineering and computer science. And just to be as transparent as possible, my first time homeschooling, yeah, he had 18 teachers literally, and most of them were professors at some type of university. Maybe they were educationals in the past. I still was like, he needs some. If he wants to do engineering and computer science, he's going to need like a whole nother level of curriculum. And so my husband and I discussed it, and so we agreed that he will start homeschool. I'm sorry, he will start high school, and so he started high school. He did start a year early, but he did essentially begin to do that. So right now he's a rising senior.
Whoa. Isn't that
So we're
crazy?
almost done with that process.
Yeah,
It
my
is
son,
unbelievable when I say it. It really
I
is.
know, I can't imagine. I'm not ready. I'm ready, but not ready. It's like a weird, bittersweet thing to
Totally
it.
get it.
Yeah, because our food, my son, he was homeschooled. Well, actually, no, he was not, because that's not the same thing. He went to virtual school.
Okay.
um, After COVID, obviously, we lived in Montgomery County at the time. And what Montgomery County did is they actually created a virtual school. So
Oh.
when people started going back to school, they were like, okay, you can go back to school or you can choose to stay in Montgomery County Virtual Academy. And he stayed
Oh.
there until sixth grade. So he was
Mm.
basically in virtual school for 2.5 years. Pros and cons, as you already mentioned, although and I wasn't the homeschool, I wasn't the teacher, although I sometimes felt like the teacher, but
Right.
I wasn't technically. But it was really cool to observe him in the learning environment and know, because usually you're not there. You don't know how the teacher
Mm-hmm.
talking to the kids or how the kids are receiving what the teachers are saying. So now I can hear her and I'm like, what did she just say to y'all? Or, or did you hear what she just said? And it just was eye opening to have like that type of interaction with him all day, like while he
Mm-hmm.
was in school. But
I
now he's in
definitely do. I
person and he
will. I
loves
will
it.
add that a part of me wish I would have continued the
Oh
12th.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so let's go back to that because like you said, to me, Miles is a genius. And I don't even know y'all like that. But I do know when I read his bio for Kids Fashion Week, I'm like, he did what? And he does what? And when I'm writing his bio, I'm just overly impressed. And then to hear that you were homeschooling him and he's a genius, I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, he's gonna go so far. So let's get into some of his other accolades right quick because he is a chess director. He's a climate change leader with Al Gore's organization. He's doing things and dipping his toes in NASA already. So tell me, like, how, especially as a homeschooling momager, how did you get him into all of these other things?
I, so I won't take all of the credit because my husband's very much involved. He's very much observant, just as me. And so just watching him. So when he was 3 or 4, we put him in a Montessori school in
Mhm.
Washington, D.C. We were living in D.C. at the time. It was a bilingual school. So they taught them 100% in Spanish. It didn't matter if Spanish was not your primary language. They talked to them and they taught them in Spanish. They only spoke to them in English when they felt it was absolutely necessary to do it.
So he's bilingual too. I didn't know that.
He is not, and that's where I'm going with
Oh,
that.
oh
Unfortunately, it was a
okay.
charter school. He could have been, but it was a charter school, and we moved out of DC. And once, and I didn't. It was a new school, and so I don't know if you remember the transition with the charter schools coming in DC. It was all brand new. You know, you implement something new, like the legitimates aren't there, and everything is still kind of coming together. So I wasn't aware that if I moved, I would have had to take them out. Had I been, we wouldn't have moved to Maryland. But
Got it.
because we moved to Maryland, we ended up having to take them out, and they did it abruptly. And I was like I think that was one of the most disappointing points in Miles, can't call it a career, he was only 4, but in his life, because he was in a point, because he was doing so well. They were
Yeah.
very surprised at how he was able to catch on, because most of his classmates, Spanish was their first language.
Hmm.
And so they were very impressed. And so it was very heartbreaking. We had to take him out. And so, but his teacher felt he was doing so well. She was driving all the way out the Waldorf to tutor him after we had to take him out. We paid her, and we was like, I still keep in touch with her. And we was like, we'll pay you. Like, we got to be able to keep this Spanish up. Like, he was doing too well at a young age. And she believed in him so much she did it. And of course, as you can imagine, it became too much because it was Waldorf and she lived in DC. And then she would start her own family. And
Yeah.
so, but we so appreciate her, and because she did everything she could. And so, unfortunately, during that process, no other school offers you Spanish in kindergarten, right? And so it was really difficult, especially in Maryland, and we just couldn't find one. But anyway, so throughout that process, we just started really paying close attention to him, not just making sure he's not touching something he's not supposed to, but really paying attention to, because we were also blown away. Like, we had videos of him playing with his toys in Spanish. So that, I think that was like the major light bulb that went off for me and my husband, that okay, we gotta start paying attention to this kid, and so he can show us what he's into, what he likes, and what he loves, and what he's great at, without, and we're talking about things that we didn't teach him. Like, we take no credit in any of
Right.
that. And so as we monitored him, we just started noticing certain things, that how he organizes his toys and how he plays with his toys. And then I want to call it, maybe it's been a full year after he come out of Mundo Verde was the school, which is now I think it's in Northeast now, DC. But maybe a full year after that, my husband was like, I'm going to teach him chess. I think, like, look at how he moving those pieces and how he building those. Like, I think I'm sitting here like, he 4 years old. Like, you did not play checkers. Like, what are we talking about? And unfortunately, I really did take it as a joke. And my husband's a very serious. He's like, I'm serious and you're laughing. And I was like, I don't even know anyone who plays chess. Like, chess? Like, I didn't even know you played. No, I didn't know you played chess. I'm being silly. But that's a real, like, interaction of how that happened. I thought it was like, okay, that's too much. And he taught him chess. 3 months after he taught him chess, I found the chess. Because now I'm like, okay, this is a thing. And so here's why I honor the role. When I see it, I look it up. I'm doing the work. The moment I don't need nobody to affirm it. I don't need no outside influences. My husband see it. I see it enough. And so I began to just look into chess in Charles County. Like, okay, is this a thing? Like, do they have clubs? Like, what is this? Because chess, where I'm from, nobody plays chess but the old men in the park, right? And I found that there was a chess tournament like the next month as I'm doing my research. And I was like, I'm going to put him in the chess tournament. And my husband was like, yeah. And then, of course, I'm like, should we? Like, he just started learning, just learning to do it. And so I could drag this out longer than it should be. And so I put him in the chess tournament. This kid went in the youngest in age, the youngest in grade. It was kindergarten through 12th grade. It was over 200 children. He won first place, youngest in age, youngest in grade. He came out
Oh my
each, because
God.
I think it was 3 games. And he came out each game with the stone face. And you wouldn't know whether he won or if he lost, because he's not excited, he's not sad. And we're like, so what happened? He's like, I won. We're like, but he looked at us like, why are you so happy? And we're like, I mean, 3 months into it and you're already confident. And so he ended up on the front page of the local paper, and the school put him out on their billboard. And so that was that. But if I can double back without taking up too much time, there was a lot going on at this time. So, like I told you, we had to take him out of the bilingual, and it was abruptly, so it was actually during the school year. So I had to put him in the school in our county. In the school in the county, they would send home these, because this is going to lead to the whole homeschool aspect. You know, the sad face, happy face, sad face. And I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that. But they would send them home, and during this time, they wanted you to sign them.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, he's in kindergarten. I'm not signing a paper that says it was a smiley face, sad face. That went on for most of the school year. And so we started asking for meetings like, okay, this is like, because now she sent home a folder saying with a note, you didn't sign all these. These are the ones that I sent home the past 3 months. They need to be signed, da 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 da. And so we asked for meetings and we're like, okay, we're not going to help you create a paper trail for our son. He's in the kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? Like he's 4.5 years old. And you want to create a paper trail on whether or not he threw his pencil on the floor or stood in line long enough to go to the cafeteria. Because that's really what it was. She would
Mhm.
call me. He's tying his shoe under the table, and he just takes so. I mean, she would call me like a lot. And I was like,
Mhm.
"What are we dealing with?"
Mhm.
And so, long story
Mhm.
short, it's going to connect to chess and homeschool, and then hopefully I can move on. And so, I kept saying, "Can we test him for gifted and talented? Because I think he's bored. I think he's
Mhm.
bored." My husband's family has a daycare. He was in a daycare basically at 2 years old, so he's seeing these kids do all this stuff that he's now doing in
Mhm.
kindergarten. It's like this, he's bored. Oh, only the teacher can recommend him for gifted and talented. Da 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 da. Just really blowing us off, blowing us off, blowing us off. He won that chess tournament. They got that newspaper. They called me that Monday. That Monday, they called me after months of me saying test him. After months of me saying he's bored. I think we want to test him for gifted and talented.
Wow.
And so we
And he was in
accepted, of course.
kindergarten when he won that tournament? To be clear,
Yes, when he
he
won that tournament, they saw him on the
wow.
front page of the paper because it's all in the county. It was a county
Oh
tournament,
my
and the county is
God.
very much close knit. And so now they want to test them for gifted and talent. And so then they skipped him because I kind of
Mhm.
figured that's what. So now he's teaching, and I'm not over. I don't have to overindulge. He's teaching his kids chess
Mhm.
at
Right.
5 years old. Like that was something they did whenever he was done with his work, because the teacher his new teacher realized, okay, when he's done with his work, give him something else to continue to be creative. And so she
Mhm.
allowed him to teach the kids in his, I guess, first grade class, chess, whenever he was done with his work. And so that always was in the back of our mind whenever the homeschool would come up. That was like
Mhm.
another red flag. Like, see, that's why we need to homeschool. That's why we need to
Mhm.
homeschool. And so, yeah, and so that was that. And so then we started giving him, once he learned chess, my husband was like, let's start buying him robot kits
Mhm.
because he's very analytical and see if you can put these things together. So I would buy him these, I mean, like 200, pieces, and you got to put them together. And he was building them things like overnight. He wouldn't move. He's putting them together. He's twisting the wires, and the robot's moving. And we're like, oh my God, Mom said, keep buying them, keep buying them. So of course, here I go, robotics teaching. Who does it? And I found the
Yep.
National Association of I'm sorry, the NSB, which is geez, somehow I lose it. NSB is the National Society of Black Engineers,
Mhm.
and I found that program which started at elementary, and they had a location on Howard campus. And so we got him into that, and then he began to, get on competitive teams, and they would compete and go out of town to compete. And so I guess to answer your question, we just been observing him, and when we notice something, we just find the platform or the environment that can cultivate that, and that's how I was going from that to that. And so then we realized he loved animals. We met a woman that works with the National Geographic, yeah, National Geographic,
Mhm. Yeah.
Sandra Turner. We met her, which was kind of weird because at this point I'm actually homeschooling.
Mhm.
And Miles had an assignment where he had to interview someone that's in the field of his choice. I'm homeschooling him, so he's probably, I guess he's 11, I don't know. And Dr. Curl Reed, who was the president, I believe, at the time for National Society of Black Engineers. He was actually the president of the organization. I was tracked him down. I reached out to the office. The assistant gets back. He's sitting down with this guy, interviewing him on a Sunday. And he took it out of his busy schedule to do that within 3 days because he was so impressed. And not knowing that his assistant worked with National Geographic.
Mm.
And so after the interview and everything, that assistant reached back out. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry to call. I know you reached out for Dr. Reed. I know you wasn't trying to reach me, but basically this is who I work for outside of being his assistant. And I'm
Mm.
so impressed with Miles. I would love to sit down with Miles. And she started explaining to us what she was doing.
Mm.
And she started talking about climate change. Again, we take no credit on that. Climate change, huh? Like, and so Miles was like, yeah, climate change. I'm like, okay, climate change. He's familiar. And he sits down with her, and as you know, she has him on ABC 7 News. I swear, within 3 weeks of the
Mm.
conversation, like this stuff is moving like an Amtrak train, you know.
Right, right.
And again, we take no credit. We didn't even know that he was even into climate change. She just said she just was impressed by him. He said nothing about climate change for her to know that he had an interest. Like that's important to mention. She
Right.
just was impressed by him as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I deal with kids, I work with kids. I just want to like over Zoom. It's like I'm just, and it was a little like,
Right, right.
okay,
It's always a
because we
side
didn't see
eye.
the, because we didn't understand the connection. Like, what was it? What's the correlation? But then
Mm-hmm.
when she started mentioning it, and Miles was familiar with what she was saying, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I didn't know you was the shit. He was like, yeah. So they spoke. Then a few weeks, she had him on ABC 7 News talking about climate change. Um,
Wow.
a few days
It
after that,
sounds.
she's like, he should be a climate change leader. And I'm like, I was like, what is that? Like, what is that? And I go back,
What does he have
all
to
right. She's
do?
like, I'm like, okay. So that's why, that's why I was kind of trying to be a little modest in the beginning because everything is not our doing, right? Everything is not, we saw, we cultivated, we put in. No, a lot of it was other people. And that's what we call a village. We were
Yeah.
connecting with all these people that were in these different spaces that he just so happened to be interested in. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, she referred him to be a climate change, which he was too young to be. But because she was part of National Geographic, they bent the rules for him and allowed him to be a climate change leader at 13. And so, I guess I've said enough, and I'll wait for more questions.
No,
But
this
that,
is your
I mean,
interview. So do you believe in destiny?
absolutely.
Because it
I
just
don't believe
that well,
anything
that's what
happened by, yeah, it
right.
was
That's
all
what your
ordained.
story is given. It's just given right place, right time,
Yeah,
destiny, full alignment
yeah.
with whatever Miles's future is to show us because he's so young that this definitely is just the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really a preview of all the great things we're going to see from him and his effect on the world. Because he's already having such a grand effect on the community, the local community.
Insert this as well because and I said
Please.
something on ABC, and my husband and I talked about it later. And he was like, I don't know if you recall the interview. Um, and so the one was like, so are you guys surprised that he's made it this far? Like, and I'm like, no, I'm not surprised. And I didn't want to, because it wasn't like a boastful thing. It's like
Mhm,
things have been moving like an Amtrak train for this kid since a
mhm,
toddler age. Like the interest is there, it's attacked. Now he is on the platform. The interest is
mhm,
there. Now we can. It's just you can't make this stuff up, right? We didn't when he said he had to do the interviews to someone with in the career of his choice. We didn't think we would end up with the president of the Nesbitt. We never would have thought that. I actually
right,
thought it was a little far fetched. I'm
right.
thinking like, we're not gonna find this guy. We're not gonna have time to do this. Like, especially because we're homeschooling. Like we don't have an organization behind us saying, hey, we've been in school. No. And so, but even with chess, right? So he did the chess, and he's had several instructors over the years. And so, one particular chess instructor, Mr. Von Bennett of DC State Chess, he started teaching him chess around 7, 8 years old and maybe 8.5. Maybe I feel like it wasn't a year after. He was like, Mouse Big is become a chess tournament director. And I was like, Mr. Bennett, what is a chess tournament director? So I do my research. And then so I asked Mouse. Now, mind you, I didn't insert this, but Mouse is being asked of these things. We're not just saying you're going to do it. And he's like, that's how times like, yeah, and everything. So, but with the chess tournament director, he was like, I don't think I've been playing chess long enough to be a director. I said, that's what I was thinking. But he was saying you don't have to. And he's saying this, and Mr. Bennett's saying that. And he was like, that was one thing. He was like, I think it's too soon. And so we did not jump on the chess tournament director thing right away.
Mm.
Like I said, he mentioned it to him like maybe he was 8.5, 9. And then at 10 years old, that's when Miles was like, because Mr. Bennett, if you know anything about him, and maybe you don't,
I don't think so.
he has so much wisdom. He's just overwhelmed with wisdom and insight. And so he just kept at Miles. I'm telling you, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And next thing you know, Miles did it. And of course, the U.S. Chess Federation is looking at him like, what are you going to do? But it's no age requirement, right? There's no restriction. So sorry, you got to let him do it. And so I guess to summarize, it's just watching him, been paying attention to him, and then just connecting him with the right people that can put him in the right positions and on the right platforms. And I'm hoping that he continues to allow us to participate in things that we may notice going forward, because he'll be a young man soon.
I know.
And
I know. How I mean, I hope that he allows you to participate too, because don't nobody got your back like your parents, you know. But sometimes, as we all have seen in pop culture, very few people do keep their parents as their manager. They might keep them on payroll, but
hmm
but they're not keeping them as their managers. So, how are you feeling about that possibility?
um, I don't know how I'm feeling. There's a
Yeah,
slight concern.
yeah.
There's a slight concern.
Yeah. But he'll probably always need you regardless. Because
hmm
when I talk to other momagers on this platform and just at the bar, you know, um, they always talk about like the difference with a manager and a momager. Like a manager, they're just about that business. They're not gonna ask you how you feel about it or worry about the you as a well-being. And some may.
hmm
I don't want to take that away from some, but that's not their job, you know. So having a momager though, that I'm protecting your mind, your body, your soul, your
Right.
spirit, your energy, your future, your past. You know, it's just a whole different wave of protection.
And if I can just elaborate a little bit on the slight concern,
Yeah.
because everything's been moving so fast and so early, the concern is he going to want to take a woosah, right? Is he going to want to
Mm.
say, you know what? I don't want to do nothing right now, right? And not that anything will be
Oh,
wrong with that, but there's a concern because he started so early,
yeah.
right? With everything, not just clothing, but with everything. It all started so he was so young, and the slight and it is a slight one. Is that maybe he may come to a point where he may feel like I just want to be a normal kid,
Well, he's gonna be a grown up by then.
Oh, I just want to be a normal human being, right? I just want to just
Maybe, but I
be.
feel like from the story you've just told and how the universe is really projecting him forward, like even if he took a break, it probably is gonna be some intellectual kind of break. Like he's gonna go travel Europe or travel Africa or travel, you're still gonna feed his mind because that's what
hmm
it's giving that he has a mind that he likes to keep feeding.
Yeah, and it's also ordained that what I do believe is that you train the child in the way he should go. That when he's older, he won't depart, and
Yeah,
that's
for
why the
sure.
changes. That's why that concern is just slightly, So,
For
but
sure. I
we're
see so
great. We're
many
grateful over
great
here thus
things from
far.
Miles. So many great things for him. And yes, you're right. He's accomplished so much so soon. But and even if he pivots, it'll still be that like a destined or a ordained pivot, and it'll work out, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that made sense."
Hmm
On the back end. So let's jump back into being powered, Brand, a little bit. Um, do with him doing it since he's been so young, and you've already shared so much about your process, but is he involved in like contracts and any negotiating and budgeting and social media? Like, is he a part of the full brand behind the scenes?
He's not a part of social media.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a role in what goes up. I let him see what I think he should see,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not a part of social media.
So no
Um,
social media for Miles at all.
no, no.
Okay.
Like I said, I let him see what I think he should see. I let him comment and reply on what I think he should comment and reply on. Um, he knows what goes up. A lot of times he's part of the creating of what goes up,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not a part of any social media.
And I
Everything
would love
else, everything else he is.
And I want to ask you this next question because
Hmm.
this is the opposite answer that I've heard, and just to offer variety, right? So why not have him a part of social media?
Um, I'm an old school parent. I know I might look
Mhm.
young, but me and my husband are very old school. And we just think it's just one of the biggest distractions in the country, and I'm sure
Mhm.
abroad at this point. And it's just he has too much else. He has too many things to focus on that could just be a huge interference in his thought process, his time management, and everything. And we already got two dogs, and and we got other things going on. It's like he has a lot on his plate, and social
Yeah.
media is just we just think it's going to be it will be the biggest distraction for him. And also, you don't want him to get a puffy head. You don't need to know everything everybody says. You don't need to know how everybody feels about you. I mean, it's a lot into it, and it's so interesting because now you're exposing me. Sometimes I look at the message, I was like, "Is that what you was? You think you're talking to my 6-year-old son saying that?" And so we get
Oh.
messages where it's like, "Wow," and they actually think they're talking to him. This is why
Mhm.
he doesn't need to be on here.
True. True.
And so, but the discussion of him taking full responsibility of it has been talked about recently. But we're
Mhm.
thinking like, once he graduate, maybe, but definitely not doing it. Just now. It was a big no. I mean, it's hard nose over here. Like
Yeah.
it's no.
Was he interested, or is he interested in it, or no?
I don't think he ever showed any interest. He's never expressed any interest. I guess is
Mhm.
yeah, he's never expressed any interest.
Mhm.
Like I said, I think recently is almost like, did you post that? Okay, let me see. uh, well, maybe you should do this. And so it's like, so now it's almost like he's trying to like get his hand in there a little bit.
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we know I'm here. We can do it together. But it's just
Well,
social
you're
media
doing a great
frightens me.
job. You're doing a
Social
great
media
job
frightens
on
me.
it. Your
So
videos hitting. I thought Miles was making those videos. You go,
no, in
mom.
the beginning he was. In the beginning he was. In the beginning he was making. He don't have the time, and that's what I'm saying. Like he don't have the time for it.
Right, right. It is a
I'd
lot
like
of time.
I'm very creative in that way. So yeah,
Yeah,
especially like the past year, that's been probably all me. Probably the past 10 months has been all videos I've made. But
yeah,
but even that, when he was doing the videos early on, it was like it was too much because I was like, oh, we got to put this content out. He's like, I got homework, mom. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
So I know you just mentioned earlier that you also was a fashion designer and created clothes, and now you're telling me like you're full creative and you're getting your kinks out by doing the social media and all the videos. So tell me more about you. When are you still making clothes? Are you still
No,
sewing? No?
no, I never sewed. It was really an athletic brand.
Mhm.
Something somewhat similar what Miles is doing, but I wasn't really hands on. It was really I had like manufacturers making it,
Mhm.
and I was shipping it. But I sold a lot of things. Like I sold purses, I sold shoes, I sold clothes, watches. So I was one of those people that you gonna put me out there.
You're like, I just had to get
I
it,
would listen.
honey.
I was one of those people that Renaissance. Like I'm just, I realized how people was very much into the North Face jackets. I knew how I can get bundles of North Face jackets, and I would wholesale them. People were really into it. It was a time where Gucci boots and these Prada boots, it was a really trendy design was going on, and so I knew where I can get them in bulk, and I was selling wholesale. So I was doing that, and so I was doing so well. I was like, I should start my own clothing line. Like I already have customers, right?
Mhm.
And so, but interesting enough, and you'll probably really laugh at this, but even before I got into the selling of the clothes and my own design, I used to sell CDs. I used to work. Listen, I used to work, go to school in the morning. I had class at like, I don't know, 7 in the morning. I would work overnight. I had a day job. I had an overnight job, and I was selling CDs. And so I'm a DC girl. And so what I would do, she gonna put me all the way out there on the road. And what I would do, let's talk about now. Let's talk about no. And I would listen. I would listen to Go Go, right?
Mhm.
I would listen to Rare Essence, and whatever neighborhood they would shout out, I would go to that neighborhood. I'm a people's
Mm.
person, right? So I
Mm.
got the beautiful smile, like I said that very modestly,
Mhm.
but so I was a single woman at the time, so it was really easy. I would literally go to these neighborhoods, pop my trunk. I would have every CD. And so the way I would do it is with bootlegs, because bootleg was a big thing back then. So I
Mm-hmm.
would have the CDs before it hit the stores. Like you couldn't get them anywhere else. So it was like I was selling something that you can go to the store and buy. Like, so I was the, yes, yeah. And then we'll pop the truck and they would,
Yes.
nobody knows that, but people didn't know me. And so anyway, I just grew that. And I just was like, if they'll buy CDs, they'll buy this. If they'll buy that, they'll buy this. And so the same people bought the CDs, the same people that bought the North Face jackets, same people bought that was buying the purses. Like I was going to Canal Street, getting them fake purses, selling it. And
Yeah, DC girl.
oh my God, this is hilarious. But yeah, I was doing that while working, while being a mom, because I have another daughter.
Okay.
Not another daughter, but I have a daughter. So me and my husband, we have 5 kids total.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The oldest is 32. Miles is the youngest. He had 3 from a previous marriage. I had 1. And so at the time when I was doing all this hustling, I just had my 1 child. I was single. So I had to make it happen. All I knew was that you're not being raised in the environment I was being raised in. You're not
Mm-hmm.
growing up in neighborhoods that I grew up in. And so that was my ultimate goal. So I mean, I'll sell anything under the sun, literally, if that's what
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take to get out of this space that I'm living in. And so I just really had one objective, and that was to get out of this neighborhood I was living in, which was the
Mm-hmm.
same neighborhood I grew up in, essentially. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it was, and I was laughing just now, but that was real for me. It was very real for
Yeah.
me. Like those CDs made the difference, right? Those coats made the difference, and all of that ultimately had me living in Maryland, right? That got me to a goal, a major goal that I knew I had to accomplish, because I knew there was no way for me to expect her to not have the same experiences if I raised in the same environment. That's just
Yeah.
one thing I just knew. I knew that. I knew that when I was pregnant with her. I'm about to get emotional.
That's
I knew that
fine.
after I had her.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just knew.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that, like, because when I speak to a lot of parents, it's like our kids are doing what we started doing and never finished. And it's like our
Mm,
kids are like doing the same thing but better. And I feel
better,
like
as they
that's like
should.
the goal.
Hmm.
Right.
Every generation should be greater, and ultimately,
Yeah.
that's the main, and that's been the main objective for every single one of our kids,
Hmm.
is to be greater. And so, by any means necessary, whatever needs to be done. I mean, like for my husband and I, fast forward a little bit, when we got together, we weren't living our life as other people we knew, other couples we knew within our age bracket, right?
Hmm.
We knew private school had to be the thing. Like, then we went from private school to public, to homeschooling. So we knew, and I'm only saying that to say these two things, that we were willing to sacrifice having fun, if you will, to make
Yeah.
sure that our kids were in a better situation.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times we know a lot of people around us like have fun, get this type of car, get this type of house, and live this way and live that way. But for us, it was like, no, we need to put our kids in a better situation than we were when we were their age. And then all that'll
Hmm.
come later, right?
Yeah,
And so that
totally.
was our main objective for every single one of them. The oldest is a GW graduate, um, law school. So we really put our money where our mouth was, and made sure that they had opportunities that we couldn't have dreamed of, at their age. And so everyone's doing very well. I'm a new grandma. Yay, yay. Um,
Yay.
he's 10 months now.
Glamorous glamour. You're glamour.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, so we're grateful. And everything's going as planned. Back to what you said
Mhm.
earlier, I think that everything is the divine timing and divine intervention. Even me meeting my husband, I knew that was all divine.
Mhm.
So if someone had to write the bio, it would have everything to do with divine intervention and divine
Yeah.
connection. Because you can't make none of this up. If we went to you can't make this up. You just can't. It all connects and it's all ordained. And so we're grateful,
Yeah. It's like you're watching your own movie, like you're
literally.
observing it.
Hmm.
All right. So I know that you're also working in Be Empowered. So do you have other jobs, or are you full-time entrepreneur right now?
Well, I've been working on my own for myself about, I feel like it's about maybe about 9 years or so. I'm in real
Okay.
estate. So,
Oh,
I mean, I've
nice.
essentially been in real estate maybe since early 20s. I've been in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a real estate investor. So that's something that I've been doing on my own for the past, again, like 8.5, 9 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so for the most part, I work from home. I work for myself. My husband has an electrical contracting company.
Mm-hmm.
We have various other moving parts of business that we have as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, every kid has their own, meaning our children have their own business as well.
Okay. Like every
They all
single
have
one of
their
them.
own, yeah,
Nice.
they all have their own business and what they're doing. They all in different levels with it, in different spaces with it. But it's definitely an entrepreneurial family. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a trend, if you will, that's going on in our family. So yeah. But I didn't answer a question you mentioned earlier about being empowered. So social media is the only thing that he's not necessarily involved in. Manufacturing, designing. He's right there when I'm getting the taxes done, so he knows exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking everything down so we can see what profit and losses are and how we're past that. Yeah, so we're past that 3 year mark now. It's getting real, and so he's very much involved in all those details because, as my husband reminds me all the time, it doesn't make sense if we're doing it all for him. That was one
Mm-hmm.
of the agreements we made, is that if this is going to be your business, you have to do the business. We're
Right.
simply here to support. We can't do it for you. We shouldn't do it for you. So we're very much hands-on involved in all that as well. I'm a in different business spaces. They call me a bulldog. I don't take no for answers. Like I like whatever it is we want, we see, we desire. Like I'm the one they sick me on. Like okay, we want to do this. Okay, let's do it. And so I'm just that type of person. I have that personality,
Right.
like not just a go getter, but just an executor mentality. So sometimes I can be a little overbearing for them. Most times, I'm sure. Most
As a
times, but
mom, yeah.
it's part of it. They need it.
Well, how do
So
you balance knowing that you have 5 kids, they all have businesses, your husband have a business and you have a business? What's about balance? Like how do you balance all of those things?
believe it or not, I think that the past multiple years, I've been doing, me personally, been doing really well with it because I'm very spiritual, I'm very centered. I take balance like it's priority for me. I'm sorry, I'm going to put my oxygen on, and then you'll get yours next, Miles. Right? So I'm very that driven, right?
Mhm.
Very committed to my schedule as far as me working out when I'm at home because I'm home a lot,
Right.
and so I have a very dedicated, disciplined mentality just naturally. So for me, like I make time and do a lot for me, which gives me the capacity, is the word I would like to use, to be able to assist Miles in this. And that's why we're able to do pop ups because people say, how do you do it? It's like, because I take care of myself. I take care of myself mentally and spiritually and emotionally, and so, because I know, and this, we're not on this live if I'm not taking care of myself spiritually,
Mhm.
mentally, and emotionally. And so I'm very much in tune with myself. I'm very much attentive to myself. I'm always going through a transition mentally, emotionally, and spiritually because I check myself a lot. I
Mhm.
check the pulse of what's going on in April, right before I
Mhm.
check the pulse of what's going on in Miles and all the other kids and my husband and all that. And so I'm really big with that. And I believe, and I know that's the only reason, of course, in the strength of God and the protection of God, that even allows me the capacity to do half of what I do. Because people would, if I had to show you my to do list, you would say, how you gonna do that today?
Mhm. I'm the same way. I totally resonate with what you're saying. I think your answer is the best one I've ever heard, even from myself. Because people ask me all the time as well, how do you do all this? How do you balance that? And I give answers that, most of the time is, I don't know, I just do it. But you're right. It's because I'm taking care of myself mentally, spiritually, because I meditated this morning, because I wrote a to-do list, because I worked out today, because I took a nap when I needed it. That's why I can do it. You're
Exactly.
right. That totally is
Exactly.
why. I
Yeah.
agree with that. I'm gonna have to start saying that. That's a way better
Yeah, no, no.
answer
And so
than I
because for
don't
me, it's
know.
language. And I think that for those of us that are doing it, we got to use the language because then
Mhm.
that's teaching the others. Because a lot of times we get in our head, I can't do it. We think we don't have time, and I can't do it. And I don't have time. And it's like, let's really look at, is it because you don't have the time, or you don't have the mental capacity?
Right.
Like what is it really? You not have the wherewithal, because a lot of that's what it is. And so I think that it's important to use the language. And like I said, I don't say these things in a boastful manner. I just say it with confidence because people need to know it's not even can't. You shouldn't be trying to do all this if you're not taking care of yourself. Like, don't even
Correct.
attempt to, because you're going to break down.
Yep.
You're not burnout is the understatement. You're going to break down. You're going to emotionally break down. You're going to mentally break down. So it's not
Right.
even can I do it. You shouldn't even attempt to if you're not taking care of yourself.
I
And
love
too many
that.
of us are pressured, and it don't have to be entrepreneur. It could be the job we have,
Right.
right? It could be the marriage we have. Like, it ain't just about the things that Miles involved in. We're just talking about everyday life.
Right.
Um, Sometimes we're getting ourselves involved in things that we're not mentally prepared to handle, right? We're not
Right.
emotionally prepared to handle. But we want to get into it because maybe it's an opportunity, maybe it's a financial gain, and then we end up crashing and burning.
Hmm.
And so, like, if there was any advice, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun on a question, but we got to take care of ourselves. Like, yeah, it look good, oh, my son and my daughter doing this, but it ain't no fun if you're going to end up in an emergency room.
Hmm.
I got a brother, and I won't get too much into it because I don't want to get emotional. But unfortunately, he had a stroke in 2019. He's a basketball coach. He went and picked everybody up. He took everybody out of town. He did it all. He ran the tournament here. He had 3 tournaments going on in the same day. He went over here picking up kids, running. I was like, man, you need to chill. Like,
Hmm.
you're always in the air. You're always on the road. And it all seems like, yay, look at what I'm doing. Giving people opportunities. And he hasn't spoken since 2019.
Oh my God. I'm sorry to hear that.
He's not mobile and he does not speak as of yet.
Mm.
Saving the world. Everybody got all these great, amazing things to say about him. But he was not taking care of himself. And so we think we can get away with it and we can't.
Hmm.
We
Right.
can't. We won't. And so we just got to take care of ourselves.
I totally
It's
agree with
important.
that. So we've learned a lot about you guys as a family, as a business owners, as entrepreneurs. And as we're wrapping up today, there are two questions I'm going to ask you. One you kind of answered, but I'm going to ask you again.
Okay.
But the first one is, what have you learned from Miles?
Oh my God. You got another hour? Jeez.
Yes, yeah.
Patience. Patience. Miles is very much composed. All right. You're never going to see him sweat. Um, he's very composed. That's just that's the term for it. Um, Not to throw astrology in here, but we're all Aries over here. I'm an Aries. My husband's an
I'm
Aries. I was
Aries
an Aries.
too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, the little boy's an Aries. So it's a lot of fire signs over here. And so, but in spite of him being a fire sign, he doesn't, and he's young, but he's teaching me that I can still be a fire sign and not be so, right? Like, you can bring it down some. And so he's teaching me patience, and he's teaching me how to be a little more composed,
Mm.
right? He's teaching me how to be a little more understanding. Just recently, I can't say too much. I don't want nobody to get offended. But we was expecting something to happen that was connecting to the event that happened this past weekend. And I was like, they said they were going to do it, and why didn't they do it? And he was like, Mom, just they gonna do it. If they said they gonna do it, they gonna yeah. But today is Wednesday, and I'm just like, I'm gonna email them again, and I'm gonna call again, and I get results that way, right? But that's not always the best approach.
Mhm,
And so,
mhm.
unbeknownst to me, because the person wasn't responding and the person didn't get back, I'm like, I can't believe they was able to do it. Like, that's part of what we did. And lo and behold, they actually did. It just didn't communicate it with me.
Right.
And so he was like, "See, Ma, I told you if they said it." So it's just that sounds like a small thing, but it's a big thing because
Mhm.
for me, I'm very organized, very timely. So if we say 1 o'clock, 12:55 at the latest,
Oh
and
yeah, I'm
so
Aries too. I totally get it.
but sometimes I don't give room to people, right? Because everybody's not as organized or as timely or as responsive. And so he's teaching me to understand that everyone's not like me and I need to give grace to
Grace.
that. So there's so many other things, but I think those are probably the ones that stand out the most. Be a little more
I love that.
composed, more patient, and everybody not like you, Mom. It's just breathe. It's a breathe. I'm like, okay,
And
okay.
he does have a calm demeanor. Like I wouldn't have guessed he was an Aries. I would have probably given him Pisces, like because he's
Yeah.
so calm. Yeah, so okay, Miles over there. I know I said two more, but I'm gonna add. I'm gonna
Mhm.
throw one more in before the final
Okay.
question. What aspects or elements of you and your husband did Miles adopt? Like, what's one thing from you and one thing from your husband that Miles has?
So from my husband, and this is part of what we noticed early on, very analytical, very serious. My husband is a very serious man.
Mm,
He's very serious and he's very analytical. And so that whole wisdom aspect of him and how his thought process is, how he deciphers through information, that's 110. He gets that from dad. Like that's him full throttle. I think the Renaissance aspect, the multi, that diverse, the having hands, and like that's me. I'm a whole octopus every day of the
mm,
week, right?
mm,
And so I think that what he's showing, yeah, I think what he's showing me is that he's picked up that gift and that ability to be able to do all these things that have nothing to do with one another. Like, there's really no real correlation between clothing and chess.
mhm.
There's and then when it clash climate, that guy said that where's climate changing? Where's all the stuff coming from? They're not even connected. And so, but that's me, right? That's me. I'm over here with the real estate, and I'm always over there with with decorating. And I'm all, and so he's definitely learned that from me. That ability to I wouldn't even really give him the multitask. I wouldn't even call it that, but just that ability to not be afraid to do more than one thing that don't connect.
Nice.
I do. I think he's very much, and most won't know. You have to know him, but he's a people person, and that's me.
Uh,
I'm a social butterfly. Like I meet
mm.
you at the coffee shop, we be talking the next 5 years. We'd be friends for 5 years after one meet at the coffee shop. And Miles is very much that. You just
Okay.
gotta be in that space with him.
Yeah.
And so I think because I've seen it, I was like, I'm trying to like, do you make friends? And so I'm more of us. I said, he just like me. He knows when the environment is conducive for it. I don't.
Right.
The environment is always conducive for me. It don't matter where we at, literally. And so, but that's still he still gets that from me. Is my point.
Well, you guys are doing a great, great job as not just parents, but as managing his career and guiding him. And even though we spoke about all this stuff just being divinely guided towards you, you're still managing it. You're still knocking the balls out the court. And he has such a great foundation. He's such a great kid. And I'm just so happy to have met you guys. So
Thank you
good,
so
good,
much. We're happy to
good
have
job,
met you too. It's a blessing, and it's a we're big on connecting long term.
Yes.
So
So are we. Yeah.
somehow you lose your account on Facebook, something weird happens. Trust me, you don't get a text out of somewhere from me, and you're like, "Oh, this is guess who just reached out." That's who I am. Like his second grade teacher, reach out to her all the time. Like so,
Right.
I'm really
Right.
big on that because we truly believe in the village, and the village is not always within your DNA, right? It's not always your
Right.
bloodline. So thank you for being part of his village.
My pleasure.
I
I'm
appreciate your
honored.
platform, your team. You guys have provided him with some amazing opportunities. And so we're looking forward to staying connected with you guys for sure.
Likewise. Yay. Well, the final question that will close us out from here is any advice that you would give other moms of talented kids?
Take care of yourself. Take your time. Take your time. And I don't mean slowly, I mean take your time. Take time out for you. And consistently, not a vacation a year. That's not enough when we're dealing with children that we have on a fast pace, right? So find a way to take out some daily time for you. It's important. And stay connected to people that you network with. You'd be surprised what they can do for you, your family, or your child later on. Like, don't take who you meet at a pop up or, a fashion show lightly. Like, add them to the Rolodex and keep them updated. Yeah, this is good. I'm sorry. Keep them updated on your child. These people you meet, keep them updated on your child. I don't care if your child is 6, 12, or 25, or, we're talking about kids, but you get the point. Keep them updated on your child's progress, whether maybe they may pivot, maybe they might hit a wall, and maybe it's a difficult time. Stay connected to the people that you meet, and they give your children opportunities, because people want to see them. They want to see them grow and blossom and flourish. And so you just never know who knows who. And yeah, so stay connected.